Okay, I'm talking with Chris Dancy, who gave a keynote address this morning at ITSMF Australia's LEADit 2011 conference. And he's a specialist in social media and has been working in the IT industry for many years.
Many years.
How many?
Too many.
Too many years.
I started in '92, so I'm pretty new.
Yeah, okay. He gave some great insight to the past, present, and future of IT and where we're heading and service delivery and things like that. One of the things you said this morning, Chris, was that you made the statement mobility is going to change everything in the next 3 years. Can you just elaborate on your vision of where mobility is going and where we're going to be in perhaps 3 years?
Sure. I remember in 2007 there was a project, an international consortium to create something called One Laptop Per Child. And the goal was to get a laptop below $100 and you could actually crank the laptop. And the idea was that children would have access to information and the power of a laptop. Interestingly enough, the connectivity was never really approached in that experiment, where I think it was, it's still a very live project. It's evolved a lot. What I see now is the rise of feature phones in the BRIC nations, so Brazil, Russia, China, and India. And these feature phones it's what they call non-smartphones, because you don't say dumb phones. But feature phones, you look at Facebook, they just revamped their entire system so that they could be used on a feature phone. So what I see happening now is the same thing I saw happen literally between 91 and 95 when I was running Windows 3.1 and then went to Windows 95. Was not a lot of people had Windows 3.1, but once Windows 95 came out, and then your parents wanted a PC and everyone wanted a PC. And PCs kind of really became very, very popular. The difference is, with the mobility, it's going to be much cheaper in the next 3 years. You can already get a disposable phone in most places in the U.S. That blows my mind. A disposable $10 phone, and then the connectivity is ubiquitous. So you take $10, $20 phones that are even cheaper, phones that are subsidized. You add them with ubiquitous connectivity, more broader agreements between carriers. We're looking at a revolutionary shift in knowledge transfer as a human race. We've never had so much knowledge available to us. And it's one thing for first world nations to talk about this, like, oh, it's so wonderful. But it's going to be a very, very powerful human revolution when third world nations are enabled to communicate directly with us. Because right now they're just people we see in movies or in documentaries. But within 3 years, they're going to be toppling governments and possibly waging war through their mobile phones.
Okay. Another statement you made this morning was that we are at the precipice of technology eclipsing humanity, driven by the social media revolution. Can you just sort of elaborate a bit on that as you did this morning? Because that was a really interesting discussion that you started.
I spend a lot of time reading, and I think when people say what I do for a living, I say I consume information, because I literally, if I'm not with a human, I'm consuming data. But it's very clear to me that we've, in the last 2 years, entered a period where our technologies has eclipsed our humanity. You look at some of the things that are going on with bullying and cyberbullying, the rise of this anonymous, that shuts down websites like Scientology, and they want to shut down Facebook, which will probably already be happened by the time anyone sees this. It's a very, very scary time, and as we look further into the future, 10, 15 years, and we start looking at the first glimpses of merging with machines, because that's the only way we're going to be able to evolve, or like Darwin says, you'll perish. We're walking a very fine line right now, and I don't think a lot of people, it's cute. All our kids have, Apple devices, and a mom has an iPad, and it's a lot scarier than I think people realize.
Okay. Now, also this morning, that another comment that you made was that we're not really suffering from information overload, but filter failure.
Yes.
That's an interesting discussion as well. So talk me through that one. Not suffering information overload, but
well,
filter
that's
failure.
actually it's a great quote for a presentation because it makes people think. It's actually highly debated right now. When Clay said that a few years ago, people said, "Oh no, that you're right. We're not suffering from information overload. It is filter failure." And that's the problem. We just need better filters, and droves of people throughout the social the world and blogs and even on the news talked about it. The reality is, right now we're finding that it really wasn't so much a filter failure as a filter bubble, and there's a major difference. When we do consume media, whether it be television, internet, texts, social, video, audio. There's so many types of media. I don't think we quite comprehend how often we're consuming media. There's a filter on everything. Usually, when you're on Facebook, and it started on Amazon. If you bought this album, you might like this album, right? That seemed like a real convenient service, right? But in reality, when you apply that same service to news, you liked this news story, you'll probably like this liberal news story. It polarizes people, and again, that goes back to your last question about our technology is eclipsing our humanity because we literally are segmenting people because we think they want it, but ultimately because we're not allowing opposing viewpoints because it's more convenient to have what you want immediately than what you need maybe in the future.
Okay, you also posed the question in your presentation this morning that all these trends, the data overload and the growth of data is a significant trend that we're seeing, and that one of these trends leading to, you use the term information democratisation and precognitive news and events and hyper-specialisation. Could you just discuss a little bit about those three for me?
Yeah, so hyper-specialisation is just a form of micro-outsourcing. So in my profession, I spend a lot of times doing lots of different things for lots of different people. It's no secret, and I've spoken very openly in public at that when employed by an organization like Pink Elephant, that I outsourced my expenses. I used a service called Shoebox because, I think there's a concept for some folks, or especially organizations, that time is less valuable than it is. But if you're paying an employee, let's just make some numbers up, $100,000 a year, right? It's not worth, you really are wasting your money by having them spend half a day doing expenses. So when there's a company like Shoebox that's hyper-specialized, that gives me an application on my mobile device, that enables me to go out through my month and not worry about my expenses, that hyper-specialization offering really comes in handy. To the other question, you mentioned hyper-specialization and data democratization. One of the things that caused a revolution was the invention of the printing press. It was one thing to have monks rewrite the Bible and we control it. It's another thing once we allowed the masses to have access to information. If you go back and read about that period of time, it was almost the Dark Ages. We couldn't allow that to happen. What you're seeing with mobility and the ability to, as something as simply as check into a restaurant or share how your birthday dinner was with your wife on your whatever favorite social network it is all of this information is being crunched and being able to be delivered back to us. Right now it's being delivered back to us in the form of marketing. So when I say I had a great dinner, the next day I see this restaurant ad on the side of my social media site. Convenient, but ultimately, I've said it, and it's a very popular thing. If something is free, you're the product. So again, if we're volunteering this data is going to come back and bite us. Some of the first things we've seen are just people who can't get hired because of things they've said on social networks. Again, in America, I can almost guarantee you that by the end of 2012, we will have a First Amendment case in front of the Supreme Court, which will be the first time that this type of digital democracy has come up. And it's going to redefine the United States as we know it.
Okay.